about what's in the works here.
All right, there we go. Yet again, something else I never thought I'd hear myself say. We are live on YouTube. So thank you for those of you who have joined us. We will get started here in just a second.
Mr. Blackmer, do we want to record this to make sure that it's
yes, indeed. Thank you for
ready
that
to
reminder.
roll?
Thank you. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Nate Blackmer, and I'm the principal here at Lake Bluff Middle School.
My name is Joe Jackson. I'm the assistant principal here at Lake Bluff Middle School.
We appreciate you taking time out of your evening to join us for the next roughly 45 minutes. We, of course, decided to do the orientation this year for all students because things certainly look a bit different. Traditionally, we would do this for our sixth grade students and new students specifically. So thank you for joining us. You should also know that we are recording this video, so we'll be able to push that out to any members of our community who weren't able to see it live. And we are also streaming live on YouTube. If you have any issues accessing the Zoom broadcast, you can always give that a try as well. I will jump over here and share our screen and we can get going.
One thing that we did want to point out as we get started, at the bottom of your Zoom login, if you're watching over Zoom tonight, is a Q&A feature. Feel free to type your questions in. Mr. Blackmer and I will be presenting, but in the interim, if it's a question that we can answer, we may incorporate it into the presentation, or we'll just try to answer it in the Q&A format. We apologize if we can't get to every question. They're all really good questions because we want to make sure that everyone understands what's going on, but we will follow up with you in the days ahead if we can't answer them in our presentation tonight.
All right. Mr. Jackson, are we able to see my slideshow now?
I do not see it. I see a white bar that goes up and down.
All right, well, let's fix that. I apologize, everyone. We're going to try that one more time.
As one of the questions that came up right now, Nate, was just a kudos to all of the volunteers yesterday from the PTO that helped with supply pickup. I echo that comment from the person that submitted that. They did a fantastic job, and so many supplies and other things went out to families yesterday.
I agree 100%. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Jackson, can you see the screen now?
It looks beautiful. It's a great picture of the school looking out over in the neighborhoods into Lake Michigan.
All right, great. We'll get going then. Thank you very much. Obviously, we've introduced ourselves already, but there we are yet again. Just a quick overview of the agenda. We want to talk about things to know before the first day of school. We'll then sort of follow a day in the life and walk you through what that's going to look like here at LBMS. And then we'll talk a bit about the in-person facilitated remote learning. We've held off on that toward the second half of the presentation. So you'll definitely want to stick around and listen to that if you have a student who will be in person. And as Mr. Jackson already said, we're going to do our best to answer questions as we go through in the Q&A section. So thank you for submitting those. Couple of things to know, and I do hope we have some students watching because a lot of this is directed to them. If you are one of those students who haven't turned your device on all summer long, this would be a good time to turn it on and make sure it works and make sure you remember your username and password. In the email that I sent earlier today, I reminded our students that if their computer does not come on, those Chromebooks can be reset by plugging it in, holding down the power button, and the reset button, I believe it's the third from the left on the top, has a little arrow and a circle on it. So give that a try if you're having any issues. Otherwise, you can let us know and we'll get to the tech section and how to support you there later in the presentation. Make sure that school issue device is charged and ready to go. Meet the Advisor is coming up on Monday, and that's going to occur at 2 o'clock. And you'll want to keep an eye on your student issued email because your advisors are going to be reaching out and they're going to share a Zoom link with you. And the intent of that time, probably half hour, maybe a little bit less, is to get acquainted, allow the teachers the opportunity to get to meet their kids, review some expectations and procedures, review the daily schedule, their schedule very specifically. We're going to be talking with kids about their own personal schedules. So that'll be an important part of that meeting. And of course, answer questions that the students might have about the first day.
We're going to talk a little bit about student schedules here. And before we do that, you may see a couple other people on the panelist display of our webinar. Paul Sanchez is joining us. He is our IT specialist in the district. You also may see Audrey Jirov, the assistant principal at Lake Bluff Elementary, and also Kelly Bay, the principal of Lake Bluff Elementary, will be joining us. Hi, Paul. Hi, Audrey. Good to see you. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the learning will look like here at the middle school. And there are two words that, quite frankly, are used way too much in these discussions. And Mr. Blackmer and I both joke at their use as we go about this. One of the things that we're going to be talking about is this topic called synchronous instruction and asynchronous instruction. Synchronous instruction happens when a teacher is working in real time with students. So the teacher will be on the screen zooming in with their class. They could be presenting a new topic, clarifying directions for an upcoming project or assignment. They could be leading a small group discussion, having kids join breakout spaces to talk about a topic or work on a project. The other aspect of our school day is asynchronous instruction. And this is where the teacher is not meeting in real time with the students, but has thoughtfully prepared work for students to continue their learning in the subject area. It could be a written response to something that they had talked about previously. It might be a discussion board activity. It might be a time for them to show what they know on a quiz or a short assessment. All of those and more could be what are in the asynchronous times. And students can reach out to teachers during that time over email and to ask questions and contact them. So the two big areas are when things are happening live in real time, synchronous, and not in real time, but thoughtfully prepared ahead of time, which is asynchronous. So what does the schedule look like? Every student in grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. So students, if you're watching, parents, if you're watching, you'll have a couple classes live every day, synchronous. Your teachers will be presenting to you live every day. And those are morning and afternoon advisory, and also your fine arts course, as well as your PE or health course. Every day you will have those synchronous classes. On A days, so those are Mondays and Wednesdays, and then alternating Fridays. And we'll clarify the Fridays for you as we get a little bit closer to the start of the year. Alternating Mondays and Wednesdays, the A days, you will also have live synchronous math and language arts classes. So those are the days you're going to have math and LA live, and your teachers will be meeting with you over Zoom. Your science, social studies, and world language classes will be asynchronous those days. So your teachers will have pre-formatted some content for you to work on and thoughtfully prepared that for you. On B days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, you'll, in addition to your advisory in PE and health or your fine arts class, you're going to have synchronous live with your teacher, science, social studies, and world language. And then asynchronous math and language arts. So if you see the pattern, A days, you're going to have your synchronous, your live math and language arts. B days, you're going to have your live synchronous science, social studies, and world language. So it helps me to visualize this in a schedule a little bit. And I picked a 6th grade schedule because for our 7th graders and 8th graders that are coming back, many of you have seen this schedule. I know we have some new families, and Mr. Blackmer and I and your teachers will help you navigate this. But for our 6th graders that are new to this environment, we wanted to cater this schedule to you. So I'm going to look at the left-hand side of the screen where it says a sample A day. So grade 6 sample A day. The blue boxes indicate where you're going to have live teaching. And so You'll have advisory from 10:30 to 10:35, and then you'll have math. This student has math in the morning. Not every student has math in the morning, but about half of you will. You'll have math. This student has math periods 1 and a portion of 2. Our math and LA classes are slightly longer than our other classes. That will be live. There's a 5-minute break, and then you'll have your live language arts class. After your language arts class, you'll have lunch. Whether you're at home or in the building, our lunchtime is all designated at the same time. We'll talk more about lunch for those of us that are going to be in the building a little bit later. But if you're at home, that's the time to have some food for your lunch break. Now, if you notice on the left-hand side, the boxes are not blue in the afternoon, science, social studies, and world language, if the student's taking Spanish or French. Those classes on that day are not live, they're asynchronous. So that means that your science teacher, your social studies teacher, your world language teacher will have good things for you to do, but you're not going to be meeting live with them. And it's for a couple of reasons. The first is we want to honor the fact that it is very hard to spend hours upon hours in front of a screen every day. And so that may be an opportunity for you to work and not have to be focused in a Zoom meeting for that. It also allows us to have adequate supervision while we're here in the building. And so it's a nice balance of those to provide that flip-flop in synchronous and asynchronous. And then at the end of your day, you're going to have your fine arts classes. You're going to have your fine arts and then either PE or health in the other class. And you end your day back in advisory. If you notice on the right-hand side, it's just a mirror image. Your math and LA classes are now asynchronous. They're not shaded. And so your morning is a little bit more asynchronous work. We would recommend that you still do those classes during those times. And then your afternoon is a little bit heavier on that day for the live side of things.
Thank you, Mr. Jaxie. I mentioned earlier that there will be a more personalized schedule that the advisors will be working through with the kids. And this is an example of what that template's going to look like. Each student will have a schedule like this. It will have the classes specifically at the times that they will be attending those classes. And we'll have links to either the landing page or the Google Classroom in order for a student to streamline their entry into those classes. Now, different from the remote learning that we did in the spring, there's absolutely an expectation that students are attending these classes at the time that they're supposed to. We will be taking attendance, and I'll talk to you more about that. But regardless of whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, I want students to get in the habit of going to the Google Classroom and clicking on these links at the time that they would be in that class, regardless of whether it's asynchronous or synchronous. It really is important to establish that schedule, and our advisors are going to help them to do that. Let's talk a little bit about the learning environment, and whether it's at home or whether it's here at school. There's obviously some things that middle school students can benefit from in terms of preparing. I have 3 of my own at home, and I can assure you that the summertime looked a little different. We're working to get back on a schedule at the Blackmore House as well, but certainly adequate sleep is high on the list. Students, I know it's easy to say we're starting school later. Please make sure you're getting enough rest. Make sure you're getting up in the morning and preparing for a school day, just as you would if you were heading to the building. Have a healthy breakfast, take a shower, brush your teeth, do those things, and they will definitely make you more prepared for your day. Other thing to do is to think about your workspace. Obviously, you're going to need a charged Chromebook. You're going to need a place that's quiet or at least semi-quiet, so that when you chime in and share your input during a class meeting, we can hear what you have to say. One thing I do want you to think about, and I'm going to encourage parents to think about as well. Certainly, there are some students upstairs in the room with the door closed that probably can be super productive and do a great job. I can also tell you that there are middle school students that would probably not be the best location for. Have a family conversation about this. Designate the learning space in your house that is going to work best for your student. In some cases, it may actually be down perhaps in the living room or in the dining room or in the den, in a more public place where we can help hold each other accountable. That'd be the way I would put it, to help hold each other accountable for the work that we have to do.
So far we've set the stage, getting kind of knowing what your day will look like, getting ready for your day. And now we're starting our school day. And we'll talk more about if you're coming into the building a little bit later. But for those of us that are accessing school from home, you're going to join your advisory. And our first thing thing of our morning is morning advisory at 10:30. It runs 10:30 to 10:35. It is a very short class. And so you'll log in with Zoom to join your advisory class, and your advisory teacher will be emailing that out on Monday with the link for your advisory sessions. One thing we're going to encourage you is that morning advisory is very short. Please do not wait till the last minute to log in to morning advisory. If we were all in the building, let's wind the clock back a year, we'd open the doors to the building 5 minutes before we need to be in advisory. And so students can start coming into the building and getting into advisory before the start time. The same is true here. We're going to ask our teachers to open those Zoom meetings at 10:25, and you can join as early as 10:25 into those Zoom meetings. That way, if there is a tech issue, or you do need to restart your Chromebook, or you do need to plug it in because it didn't charge, you can handle that and still get connected to your advisory. Don't wait till the last minute and then have a tech issue. That being said, we're going to be flexible. We're going to figure it out together, and we're going to make this work. But let's try our best to be proactive instead of waiting until the last minute.
All right, let's talk a little bit about expectations for Zoom. Zoom is the platform that we're going to be using frequently, and I'm going to just put it out there. There's some do's, some don'ts, and some things to know. So we'll crank through it. First of all, I've already mentioned you got to be there on time. The cameras, we expect those cameras to be on unless a teacher gives you permission to turn them off. Obviously, find a quiet place and limiting distractions such as siblings to the best of your ability, cell phones, pets, TV, etc. Keep your microphone on mute unless you are speaking. That's a really big one. That's something that our students will often forget. So I'm going to encourage you to always check that mute button. One trick is that you can use the space bar to unmute yourself. And as soon as you let the space bar go, you go back to mute. It's a nice trick that I've learned. Select a profile picture of yourself that you like. So you're going to be given some freedom here to choose a picture you like, make sure it is school appropriate. And yes, it must be a picture of you, not an object that you like or your favorite movie or performing artist, but a picture of you. Use your actual name in your profile as well. Use the chat feature appropriately and stay engaged and participate in your class. Those are all the do's. Here are some simple don'ts. Don't save, don't record screenshots, don't share, don't post anything from a Zoom meeting. This is really important. This is a great tool that can be abused if you're not careful. I want you to know that everything that's being done on these school issued devices and these school owned accounts is trackable. That's something that we tell students because we want to save them from the potential embarrassment or discomfort in being caught doing something they shouldn't do. So keep that in mind. Certainly avoid chewing gum, eating snacks, and drinking things while on video. That can certainly be distracting. Don't add a profile image other than your own photo. Avoid noisy locations. We know, right? You can open up other tabs and see other things, and that can become very distracting for you and frankly, quite obvious for the rest of us that are watching you and in class with you. So let's avoid the gaming and avoid distracting others. Now, here are the things to keep in mind. Zoom records the precise login and log off time that every student jumps onto a Zoom meeting. And that's a great tool for our teachers to use in order to record attendance in their classrooms. And in fact, they will be doing that. So students, that's something to keep in mind. They'll know if you're late because it automatically records your login time. All students are expected to attend all Zoom meetings unless they have been called in absent by a parent or guardian. This is just like school. If you're not there, we need to know in advance where you are, and we need to know why. And in part because we care, we worry. If we don't see you, we want to know that you're safe and doing well. And so parents, I appreciate your cooperation and letting us know if your student is unable to attend class for some reason. Anything you do on your school owned device is tracked and reviewable by your school administrators. Just wanted to put it right out there so everybody knows that.
So we want to show you a little bit about the websites that you're going to be accessing this year to get to your classes, to learn what needs to happen, and to navigate through our school year. Whether you're learning from home or learning from in the building, these websites are really critical for you. And so we just have some still images of this. Your advisory teachers will share more information on Monday about these, what we call landing pages. So seventh graders, we're talking to you now. All the landing pages look alike, but this is the seventh grade landing page. For those of you that remember in the spring, we had the homework websites, and we acknowledge that those were a lot of scrolling to get to your classes, and it could have been a little bit tricky to navigate. We heard that feedback, and we have our landing pages for each grade level. And so if you look at this landing page, I want you to notice a couple things. At the top or in the middle, it has the 7th grade title, but along the top, it has a home button, but as your schedule, it has a link to the weekly update that we hope to put in there for parents and families. And then it lists all of your classes across the top and down in the tab that says more. So let's pretend for a minute that you need to go, you're in 7th grade and you need to go to your math class. I don't see it at the top, so I would go and I'd click more and it would open up to this page. Go ahead, Mr. Blackmer. And I'm right here. I have the math page for Mrs. Carlson and Mrs. Shantz. And so what do you notice on this page? It has a slide right in front of us for their day's learning for Tuesday, September 1st, the first day of school. On that slide, it will tell you if that class is meeting synchronously or asynchronously that day. I can look right at this and I see that it's asynchronous. It's right under the date. So that means I'm not going to see Mrs. Carlson or Mrs. Shantz live on this day, but they have some good things for us to do. It says check email for the link to your Math 2 Google Classroom. Oh, I need to go check my email to make sure I'm signed into Google Classroom for their class. And then I need to view the mathography examples. So it sounds like they're doing, instead of a biography, kind of a mathography to get the year going. And you'd follow that checklist of what needs to happen. And so it's very clear what you'll need to do for that class. Let's say I don't have a slide for this, Mr. Blackmer, but if you're done with Math 2, and now you know I need to go to my language arts class, I can click up at the top and I can go on from there.
One other thing to know, the reason we're using Google Slides for this is that it's also sort of interactive. You can go forward and backward and look at the agenda from today. Maybe you missed something from yesterday or the day before. You can go back and take a look at a teacher's agenda from the previous days. And we will be working to have about a week's worth of agendas up. So you can even look ahead to see what's coming down the pipe, which is a nice feature.
Another website that we're going to be using in conjunction with our landing pages and also Google Classroom is a website called OTIS. For those of you that have been in Lake Bluff Middle School, you know that that's where you can look up grades and assessments. And if we look here on our OTIS page, this is a sample homepage on OTIS. It kind of has a news feed feature where it shows what assignments maybe have been inputted into the gradebook and also what lessons you might need to complete if your teacher directs you there. Mr. Blackmer, you can go ahead and advance. In OTIS, there's a page that has lessons. And while we're using Google Classroom for the majority of our content delivery to you, OTIS lessons may be conducive for some content delivery. Your teachers would be very specific about this, and the lessons tab is on the left-hand side of your OTIS login. And then the last thing that you'll see in OTIS, and this is probably where most of you will spend your time in OTIS, is seeing the gradebook. And if you look in the gradebook here, it's also along the left-hand side is all of the OTIS tabs to navigate. You see at the top, there'll be a way to navigate between seeing kind of a points-based gradebook and a standards-based gradebook. And you'll be able to see and check your progress, and parents and families check your students' progress throughout the year. Teachers will be good about entering those, and you'll be able to see how students are doing. The last website, and we talked about this, is Google Classroom. Google Classroom is a tremendous tool that can house assignments. It can house announcements. Teachers can post videos. They can post PDFs, whatever needs to be in the hands of students for their learning. Teachers will be helping students log into their Google Classrooms on Monday in the Meet the Advisor opportunity. They'll give more information about that. Students will need to check your email, and if your teachers send you a link that invites you to your Google Classroom, accept it, and that way you can be in the classroom. Your teachers will be inviting you and sharing more information about that on Monday. One thing I'd like to just point out about Google Classroom is make sure that when you want to go back and forth from your different classes, you click back. Mr. Blackmer, if you could hover over in the top left-hand corner, it won't go there on this, but that's your toggle to get back from Google Classroom to Google Classroom pages.
We good to move on there? Sorry, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, we're good,
All right.
Mr. Blackmore.
Perfect. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the fact that we're on a remote platform. Tech support is more important than ever before, and it remains a priority for us. One of the things that you will find linked on our main page is this form. I've linked it here as well. It's an opportunity for you to explain to us if you're having problems, and parents, I recognize if a student can't get in to their school issue device, we may rely upon you to reach out. Of course, you can give us a call, but you can also reach out by submitting some detailed information on this form. It'll allow us to expedite our support in order to get that thing fixed as quickly as we possibly can. I'm going to talk now a little bit about fine arts. So fine arts classes are unique in many respects, and we're just blessed to have fantastic fine arts teachers here and some amazing offerings. We are going to do some adjustments to those offerings for the coming year, in part because indoor chorus and band have come with some pretty stringent requirements. And so we've gotten creative, and we're going to have students assigned to a rotation of fine arts classes, and they will rotate into new classes every 9 weeks. There will be a music, an art, a STEAM, and a drama offering for all kids. Mr. Beasy and Ms. C are working to incorporate some of the elements of their courses as far as chorus and band into the STEAM classes. But there's certainly going to be more to come, and we have a fine arts team that's working hard to adapt to the current environment that we're in. So more to come on that, but I wanted to give a quick overview this evening.
Another thing that will look different in our schedule is our physical education classes. And one of the best parts about PE is working together as a team, collaborating in different games, having fun, and our PE teachers do a tremendous job of that. But we also know that that's not the reality that we're going to be in for some time. And so what we want to communicate tonight is that for your synchronous PE class, there is an expectation that you're going to be doing some physical activity. And so whether Mr. Williams or Mrs. Lucas is giving you directions about an activity, parents, families, they may need to do some physical activity during that time. The teachers are working really hard to structure it so that it is conducive to being done at home and not in a large space. But we need to acknowledge that the point of physical education is to be up and moving and not sitting behind the screen for that portion of the day.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the in-person components. As I mentioned before, there's going to be the need for every student to self-certify. That means they need to go through a list of items in order to determine that they do not have any symptoms that could potentially be that of COVID-19. We're going to be utilizing a Frontline app for that. We're going to be sending out more information to all parents very soon so that you can navigate either to that app or to a web page where you can submit this information. We are asking that parents self-certify by 8 o'clock in the morning. And you might wonder, well, school doesn't start until 10:30. Some of our special needs students will be coming in for services as early as 8 o'clock. We also know that some families may need a reminder, and we may need to make some follow-up calls. We're certainly requesting that everyone be diligent about doing this, but it's critical that every student self-certify before entering the building. So we're trying to build in some buffer time for that. What are those symptoms, you might ask? Well, there are many. A fever over 100.4 degrees, persistent cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle ache, body aches, headaches, new or loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion and runny nose, vomiting. They're all there, right? They're a lot. And you're probably thinking, well, my son has allergies or my daughter has the sniffles. This is going to be hard for me, but I am going to take it a step further. If you are not 100% certain that your student is healthy, I'm going to encourage you to keep them home. One of the reasons I can feel comfortable doing that is that everyone is on a remote learning platform. And so even if they're at home, they will still have the opportunity to continue to engage in school. we need to play it safe. We need to play it safe because if you do send a student to school with any of those symptoms that I've just reviewed, it's likely that they're going to end up having to go to the nurse and to be evaluated. And if in fact those symptoms are pervasive enough that we need to ask you to come and get them, we'll require you to do that in a timely fashion. But unfortunately, because of the regulations that are in place, you will also then be required to either provide a doctor's note to verify that the student is healthy enough to return to school. More likely than that, it could be that you would need to have a COVID test and be able to provide documentation of a negative COVID test. So this is the thing. We need cooperation from our students. We want them to be honest with their parents if they're not feeling well. We want parents to be taking those temperatures. We want parents to be paying close attention to the health of their students, because we do want and have a desire to not only continue to offer in-person instruction, but to expand it. And without the cooperation of our families and our students, that is not going to be possible. You do not have to dig very far into your news feed to find other schools that are struggling in this regard. And I'm going to go a little bit further with that. Certainly, we can do what we can do to ensure that students are taking the right precautions here at school, wearing the mask, maintaining the social distancing. However, if those things aren't happening outside of school, our efforts, as good as they may be, are not going to be successful. So students, I'm talking to you now. I know that every student that I've spoken to over the course of the last 6 months has said they prefer in-person instruction. I would prefer in-person instruction. I need you to think about what you're doing outside of school, how you're interacting with one another outside of school, and get serious about wearing those masks and maintaining social distancing. The science is very clear on this. These are some of the most important things you can do to help manage the virus that's being spread. So thank you for hearing me out. We will move on. Things that you need to do.
I can take this one, Mr. Blackmer, if you like.
Go for it, Mr. Jackson.
So one thing that we would encourage all students to have is to have at least 2 face masks with them when they come to school. And we will have 2 Lake Bluff Middle School face masks provided for students. We have those ordered and we'll be getting those out. We'd encourage students, when we get them to you, take them home, wash them first. And the mask that you can bring, and we have some pictures on our screen, they can either be the surgical style mask, or they can be the cloth face masks. I know there's some masks that I and my family picked up at Target for really inexpensive and have been pretty comfortable. One thing that we really can't have are bandanas or even the gator masks. The gator masks are kind of like, it's almost like a sleeve on your neck that you pull up over your face. And there's been some conflicting research on the effectiveness of gaiters and also bandanas. And so what we'd like for you to have is either a surgical mask or a cloth mask with you. In all honesty, Mr. Blackmer and I hate to even be talking about this with you, but we want to make this work, and we want to have students in person, and as Mr. Blackmer said, hopefully and optimistically expand that down the road, and this would help us to do that. Water bottles. Please bring a water bottle with you to school. One of the things that's unfortunate is our drinking fountains will not be working. However, we have water bottle filling stations that are touchless that will be working. So all you have to do is hold your water bottle out, and then it will automatically be filled with clean filtered water. One thing we really can't have, though, are the water bottles that really spray water or droplets. I'm thinking of like the Gatorade bottles. I think they're awesome water bottles, but we just can't have that, where that would create that aerosol spray. You need to have an organized backpack. Your backpack is your home base this year. In past years, we haven't had it as practice for kids to have their backpacks with them in class. This year, it's different. You can have your backpack with you. And in fact, that's your home base. You should have your writing utensils. You should have your supplies that you need for the day. Now, we're not going to need as many supplies as we have in past years because a lot of things will be done digitally. But you still will need paper and pencil for different activities, for different scratch work, perhaps for some math assignments, and so on. Bring your Chromebook. It can happen, but if you come to school without your Chromebook, it's kind of a really hard situation to navigate. We have a couple loaners, but really, as best you can, you got to have your device with you and bring your charger. In the past, we've had people charge the night before, and we'd encourage you to do that. Bring your laptop, your Chromebook on a full charge. But we also acknowledge that Zoom consumes the battery a lot faster than non-video streaming platforms. And so we'll have power strips and the ability for students to charge their laptops. And lastly, headphones. They don't need to be super fancy, but something that will allow you to hear your class without having to have the volume projected for the whole classroom that you'll be in.
All right. Sorry about that, Mr. Jaxios. Answered some questions.
I think we skipped riding the bus there, Mr. Blackmore.
Oh, I apologize. There we go.
So while we're talking about, we're going to start and shift to getting to school, and we have a number of students that'll be taking the bus. And so this is where it all begins, right? You've self-certified and have gotten that in. Your parents filled out the app with that you are okay to come to school. You don't have a fever. You don't have any of those symptoms. Some of you will be waiting for the bus. I know it's tempting. When I was growing up, when we'd wait for the bus, different folks would hang out, we'd talk, you wouldn't necessarily be awkwardly distant from each other, but that's the season that we're in. I would encourage you, when you're waiting for the bus, put that mask on and then stay as best you can 6 feet apart. And when we talk about 6 feet, this isn't perfect. In fact, this is more than 6 feet. But if your arms are out to your sides, you shouldn't be able, and someone else's arms are out to their sides, you shouldn't be able to touch fingertips. And in fact, it should be even further than that. But that's just a quick visual that you need to be staying apart from others, even while waiting for the bus. When you're on the bus, you're going to have an assigned seat. That's not because we want to treat you like really young kids or we don't have confidence in you, but we need to know where people are so that in case we have to communicate and update about any kind of situation, we can communicate it to those that have been impacted. So there'll be assigned seats on the bus. You need to follow the instructions of the bus driver and the bus supervisor. And then as we get to school, it's important that when we have as many people on the buses that will be on that route, and it's a lesser load than we've had in the past. The front rows of the bus will exit first, followed by the second rows, and so on.
Right. So we know that many of our families will be. Oh, I apologize, Joe. I skipped you again. I'll just jump in here and do a ride.
You just jump in. That's fine.
All right. One of the things that we want to encourage students to do is to make sure that at minimum, as they enter school property, they're wearing their masks, they're socially distanced. I would also encourage students to do the same thing as they're walking all the way here or biking all the way here. But at minimum, they must have those masks on before entering school property. We'll talk more about the process for parents who are dropping off their students. I have a diagram on the next slide that will show that. Students are permitted to bike and walk to school. We, of course, want to facilitate social distancing at the bike racks as well. So please make sure you're wearing your masks, and we will be spreading the bike racks out there. Let's talk a little bit about driving to school. We've gone ahead and annotated a Google image here. This is the parking lot on the west side of the building, the one that most parents come to as they visit the middle school. The yellow arrows represent your path of traffic coming on in. We would like you to turn left before that bright yellow gate, the second yellow gate, and plan to drop off, just as you probably normally do if you've had students here before, right in front of the building. Students will then walk down toward the end of the parking lot near the garage. We'll have a staging area there along with supervision. And so students that happen to arrive before we bring kids in are going to be stationed socially distanced, and we'll bring them into class in a supervised manner. We'll be distributing groups of kids based on their grade level to different entries so as to minimize traffic and interaction. Please be careful driving through our parking lots. There will be a lot of activity. Please drive slowly. Please do not drop off prior to 10:20 if your student is starting at 10:30. As I mentioned earlier, there'll be a few students who will be following the same procedure, but will be coming earlier in the day for 9 o'clock services. let's talk a little bit about the hallways. Here's some photographs of what they look like now. I'd like you to notice those very straight lines. Mr. Jackson and I have prided ourselves on that, and we have some staff coming in tomorrow to finish the job. The idea, though, is that we want students to maintain the social distance. So you're going to stay to the right between the wall and that yellow line. You know you're going the right direction if you're following the paw print and you're going in the direction that the bobcat would be going in. We also have arrows at the intersections to help you with that. Bottom line is stay to the right, you'll do fine. Throughout the building, we have hand sanitizers automated. Just have to put your hand underneath and you'll get a squirt of hand sanitizer. Feel free to use those throughout the time that you're here in the building. Here's what a classroom looks like at the moment. And I know it's very different from what many of you left experiencing. The desks have now been moved 6 feet apart. That maximizes classrooms at 16 desks. That's about the largest we can go. All of the desks have had these shields installed. Students will be assigned to a specific seat, and that's the seat that they will sit in each day. The plastic shields are attached to the desk, and part of the purpose of that is so that when we have lunches, that's really the only time indoors that you'll be permitted to take a mask off is to eat lunch. To minimize a lot of transmission of air through there, we're trying to, this is what's been recommended, are these screens. And we know it seems to fly a little bit in the face of this building that was redesigned and renovated with flexible seating in mind and small group gathering and interactions. And I sincerely hope we'll get back to that. But for now, being in person, this is what has to be done. So we have a maintenance crew hard at work to meet those requirements. I want to talk a little bit about advisory. The advisors are going to remain the point people for our students as well as parents. So that certainly doesn't mean that if you have a math specific question and if your advisor isn't the math teacher that you can't interact directly with those people. But as has always been the case at Lake Bluff Middle School, the advisors are going to keep special eye open for the kids assigned to their advisory. Advisory assignments, however, could change. I want to be open and clear about that. What we don't know is how many students will choose to stay in the in-person environment, how many we might be able to add to that, how many might leave. So we may, in order to keep advisories balanced, need to make some adjustments to that. So I just want to be transparent in that regard. Advisory is really the only group that is grouped based on whether they're in person or out, simply because of the kind of work that we would need to do with an in-person group may look different than what we would do with a student accessing their learning from home. And that really has more to do with the procedures and processes that we're expecting those kids to follow. If you are a hybrid student, however, you will have your in-person advisory, and we're working through the details on how you then zoom into the advisory on the days that you are not there. One thing just to keep in mind, well beyond advisory, we continue to have the team approach here. We have common planning time for our 6th, 7th, 8th grade fine arts teachers, as well as our special education teachers. Those things remain intact.
I can take this one, Mr. Blackmer.
Right.
For those of you attending school in person, your advisory teacher will actually be physically leading your classroom and not remote over Zoom. That's really the one time that you'll have your teacher in the room with you and not over Zoom facilitating your class. And so that's just easiest for us to get students checked in, to make sure students get dismissed, and to answer any questions that way. To begin the year, students that are attending 2 days a week, if you are attending in the hybrid option, whether you're attending Mondays, Wednesdays, or you're attending Tuesdays, Thursdays, you'll join in with your advisory from home using Zoom on the days when you're not in the building. And so let's say that you attended school on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the building, and then the other days you were at home. On Tuesday, you would attend your advisory in person, and then on Wednesday, you would Zoom into that session just for advisory. Your advisory is the same group of students that you'll also be with throughout the day.
Mr. Jackson, I think I'm going to attempt a couple of these to answer a few of these questions because I think they're good ones for sure. Will students move classrooms throughout the day for world language or math? And the answer to that question is no. One of the major reasons for that is our requirement for contact tracing, and not all students would be enrolled in the same class. That would result in a mixing of students and increasing the number of students that they're coming into contact with. So no, that's why we're doing the remote platform. In essence, there'll be kids in a classroom, and that's where the headphones come in. They'll be accessing perhaps different classes at the same time, but it'll all be done remotely. A similar question about the AB Friday schedule. Obviously, all of our Monday and Wednesday classes are going to be the A days. Our Tuesday and Thursday classes are going to be the B days. And then every other Friday is going to be AB. So it'll be a revolving Friday schedule. So hopefully that answers that question. Science classes, there may be streaming science classes from the classroom. Given the specialized equipment that's in there, we've made every effort to not assign students to those rooms specifically so that science teachers have access to their equipment. But students will not be in person for those portions of the day or their classes. So thank you for those questions. Appreciate it.
While we're going through the questions, I just figured this one has been out here for a while. I'd like to answer it, Mr. Blackmer, on just as examples of asynchronous work in math and language arts. A lot of that is at the discretion of our teachers. Our teachers have been hard at work all summer designing different content. I would say an example from my experience in the math classroom, a math lesson when you're in person, when you're not in person, I apologize, it's the language we've been using our whole career. When you're teaching live with students, that lesson would be something where you would check in and answer questions. You might deliver a new topic. You might be able to have students practice and answer questions while they're practicing. You might have some notes and examples we'll work together through. On the asynchronous days, it would be more heavy on the practice or the response or the continuation of that work than it would be on the delivery of the content. Sometimes, though, teachers may pre-record different topics to push out asynchronously. I could imagine myself as a math teacher maybe recording a mini lesson, 4 or 5 minutes long, demoing a certain type of problem-solving strategy. And students could watch that during their own time on the asynchronous time. Language arts could be very similar. I know that our language arts teachers do a tremendous job conferencing with students and meeting their needs. In person, or the live synchronous teaching could be more of the conferencing work, could be more of talking and discussing the text together, and the asynchronous work could be some of the lead in to be able to have those discussions and meaningful conferences.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. We'll slide into lunch. We've gotten some lunch questions as well.
So there's a fair amount of information here, and I always appreciate students when you've done student-led conferences and you say your favorite part of the day is lunch. And so I'm with you. I'm looking forward to, I always look forward to lunch, but lunch looks different this year. And lunch is going to be in your classrooms. There may be an opportunity, and we're working out the details, that on nice days that we may have an opportunity to be outside on some green space for lunches as well, socially distant and spread out. What's going to happen is the lunch option menus, or the menus and the options in the lunch menu, are limited. There's an option between one type of entree, the salad, or a sandwich option. The meals are made fresh and they're individually packaged and sealed for safety. And they're going to be delivered by our food service vendor to the classroom doors for distribution. Students won't have to leave anywhere and go through a line or go pick anything up. They'll be delivered right to their classroom where they're going to be. The lunch comes with fresh fruit and vegetable in place of the fruit and veggie bar, and so that there's no contact between that. So a little bit of a change here, and our business manager, Jay Kahn, had asked us to pass this along, is that all meals need to be pre-ordered through this new website, mymealorder.com, about a week in advance. And there's going to be more information on our website for this. And we are in the process of, once those accounts get created, transferring any balances from Pushcoin over to mymealorder.com. The school website will have the menu, more information, and instruction. Mr. Kahn had asked me to pass along that students that do receive free and reduced lunch or free lunch qualify, or for qualifying for the free lunch will receive the daily entree without the need to pre-order. And if you're in need of a free lunch application, they're available on the website as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jaxie. I want to go through some of our commonly asked questions, and I'll add, because we've got a few more popping up.
I think we bypassed dismissal, and that's a minor point,
sorry.
but we still want to make sure we have it.
I can do that. Thank you. Dismissal at the end of the day. Hey, we're getting close, by the way, folks. Thank you very much for sticking with us here. I know it's a long presentation. Dismissal at the end of the day is going to occur at 3:30. Once again, students should be practicing social distancing. We'll be escorting them out of the building. Masks must be worn until students leave the school grounds. We're going to encourage them to wear those masks as long as possible as they're leaving school. The pickup process, for any of you who have done it before with older students, will be much the same. We're not going to have parents pulling through the parking lot, but instead it'll be done along Sheridan Place. A couple of reminders. And the Lake Bluff Police are there to help us with this one. Double parking is not only strongly discouraged, it's also illegal and unsafe. So please, if you cannot find a spot along the curb, go on around the block. Dismissal here at the building with a full capacity takes about 10 minutes. I'm predicting it'll be even shorter with fewer students in the building. So we appreciate your assistance with that. A couple of questions that have come up. There was a few already about lunch. Can we bring our own lunch? Yes, absolutely. Students can pack a lunch and bring it with them. Another good one about extracurriculars, and certainly the guidance on that is continuing and also challenging. We are going to be working to develop as many extracurricular activities as we can. In some cases, that's going to be adapting them to a virtual environment. Cross country, very specifically, was one that's asked, and I have been talking to Mr. Williams already, whose wheels are turning and excited about offering a virtual cross country option. So we're excited and hoping maybe we can pick up some kids new to the sport in that area. What if my computer isn't working? We touched base about that. Don't just sit at home with a broken computer and tell us that you can't do school. You got to let us know. And if you can't access that that Google form that we shared earlier, give us a call. Come on in. We'll get you a loaner. We'll get the old one fixed. We need to have all of our students available to learn, and the device functioning fully is a big part of that. How do I fill a water bottle? You know, we do have these interesting new red locking mechanisms on all of our drinking fountains because those are not something we're allowed to give students access to. However, the water bottle filling stations remain functional and available. So you'll be able to refill a water bottle at the water bottle filling station. Restroom breaks. We certainly will allow students to have restroom breaks. However, we are restricting the number of students in a bathroom at a time. They'll be sign in and sign out for that, and supervision outside of the bathrooms to help ensure that we're not overcrowding those spots, but we will, of course, allow students to use the bathroom.
There's a couple other questions in the Q&A, Nate, that might be good for us to answer. One is, will teachers be assigning homework, or is all work expected to be completed during class or given class times?
Right. So so there will be some homework. There will be work beyond a normal school day. The rule of thumb has always been and will remain, and this is a loose interpretation. I want to acknowledge that students will often move at different paces. But when you think about homework in a 6th grade, think about the possibility of 60 minutes per day. 7th grade, 70 minutes, 8th grade, 80 minutes. Again, that can vary, and it certainly will depend upon how fast a student may be working through some of that asynchronous work. If you have concerns about work quality, or happen to have a student that likes to fly through things and maybe not do the best possible job, this is a great opportunity to ask them about it and take a look at it. And certainly if it's not acceptable, our teachers will let them know that and give them an opportunity to try again. But there will be some homework involved. We also want to be mindful of the amount of time that kids are in front of the screens. So I would say that there's a chance that some of those homework minutes may come down a bit, but it really, again, it depends on your student. How do we find a Google form if our computer is not working? Yeah, that's a great point. If you don't have access to another device to use that Google form, come on into school, ring the front doorbell, and we'll help you out, or give us a call and we can schedule a time. Will kids actually be getting letter grades or standards grades? Yes, the answer is yes to both. We have talked about this and done a full board presentation on it as well, but I want to make sure to be clear about that. We are using a hybrid grading model this year. Students will be receiving letter grades in their academic classes. And the standards will still be there, though. You'll have an opportunity to dig a little deeper, get some more information specifically about what feeds that letter grade and what kind of standards were assessed. Are you sure the bandwidth is zooming? This is a question about bandwidth here at school. Certainly, we've done a lot. Well, we've had a lot more kids in accessing the internet and our networks. We've done map testing all at the same time with success. We do not anticipating having bandwidth issues as of right now. Certainly the bandwidth of a live Zoom call is going to be a little bit different. So I can't say with 100% certainty, but I do anticipate that we'll be in good shape. Joe, you probably had a chance to read some of these before I have. Do you have any you want to jump in on?
A couple good questions here. You know, one, and this is a tough one, but I know it's on the, people are asking, just like the kids can remove masks for lunch to eat, are there times in the classroom for breathing time? And the hard answer that I kind of have to say is probably not. We really have to do our best job to keep those masks on. Now, we're looking at different ways that if a class of students may be able to take a few minutes to socially distance and walk outside and spread out and have a little break, we can certainly explore that too. We don't want to, we recognize that that's a challenge, but we also recognize we want to keep our model of having everybody in the building be able to be, or everyone that can be in the building now, continue to stay in the building. And so it's a tough answer, but that's where we're at.
One of the, speaking of tough answers, one of the questions that I have fielded quite a bit are the questions about a change in the model that a student is in. And so what I can tell you is if you have a student that is currently or planning to be in person and has already received that placement, and you decide that it's not for you and you want to be remote from home, that is a request we can honor at any time. For obvious reasons, we don't have to accommodate additional students within the building and then all the requirements that go with that. The harder accommodation to make is one who is at home wishing to return to an in-person opportunity. Right now we are at capacity, and that is not a request that we are able to honor at this time. We are starting some wait lists, and we have some wait lists of families who say, hey, if something opens up, I'd love to be able to send my student to school, even if it's in a hybrid capacity. So you can reach out to me and we can add you to the wait list if that is something that is of interest to you. We will be reevaluating everything at the end of the first trimester. And there'll be more information to come on that. And we'll take a look at what we can accommodate in person and give parents an opportunity to express a change if that's something they are looking for. I also want to thank our environmentally conscious parent who asked the question about or reinforced the idea that students that are bringing lunches, and I would encourage anyone who has ever considered bringing lunch to do it, and also to bring reusable packaging and water bottles in order to bring anything for lunch that you might want to eat. Good question here. Will there be standardized testing? The answer to that is yes. We are planning to do map testing. We're getting more information from NWEA on how we can do that. We don't yet know about the Illinois Standardized Assessment, IEA, that typically happens in the spring. Yeah, 8th grade DC trip. I'm going to go ahead and say that's highly unlikely at this point. And that pains me to say that, but it's highly unlikely. Can kids bring their phones with them? Yes, they can bring their phones to school just as they always have, but they're expected to have it turned off and put away during school hours. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
I was just going to add, Nate, because lockers won't be used, the great place for that would just be tucked in a zipper pouch in their backpack that'll stay with them at their desk.
Yeah. Folks, I do, from the bottom of my heart, want to express gratitude to our school community. The support that we have received from you has been tremendous. I know these are difficult times. I know families are going through difficult times. And we appreciate all of the patience and understanding as we work through implementing school and bringing kids back to a learning environment. So thank you very much. Obviously, you can feel free to reach out to Mr. Jaxie or myself if you have additional questions. We promised an hour. We're at an hour on the button. And so thank you. Thank you all for joining us. We will get this video up and posted for any of your friends who may not have had the chance to tune in live. There we go, Mr. Jaxie, our first YouTube streamed parent and student orientation in the books. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.